What is up, fam? Back at it. Episode 12, Boys Bet Ball. I'm running this one solo this week, and I apologize. Normally, we do these on Wednesdays, but this week has just been crazy busy for myself, especially since I'm doing it solo. Spencer's out in Mexico, and he's just living life, visiting the motherland. So I'm doing this show solo. I've been just busy with my day job, and this is tonight will be the first free night I have like this whole week, and I'm super excited for it because I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to chill, watch some sports, make some money, and then probably game a little bit. But anyway, so this one's going to be a shorter one. It's Friday. I got stuff I got to work on, but I'm shooting for like 30-ish minutes or so. But let's go ahead, recap. We wanted to recap starting with NFL. Wild card weekend, and it did not disappoint. I'll tell you that. It was total chaos. And I honestly didn't do that well wild card weekend as far as making money. I bet both, we'll go into the recaps, but for wild card weekend, let's see what, I did not do well just because one, I had Super Bowl futures, which I placed 4 of them, the 4 being Jacksonville, Houston, Philly, and LA Rams. And the first round, half of my picks got eliminated, which is unfortunate. I was really high on Jacksonville. That's probably the first game we're going to start off with because that was the first game of the wild card slate. And Jacksonville, they had a home game, 4 seed minus versus the Bills. The Bills playing on the road. I don't think Josh Allen has ever won a road playoff game, and they came in and did it. And the line was set perfectly. Like, it was basically a pick 'em. I had Jacksonville money line on top of that. That's how confident I was in the Jags. Trevor Lawrence looking the best he's ever looked in his entire career. He actually has offensive weapons. Jacoby Myers, Brenton Strange, ETN's doing his thing on the ground. You have Brian Thompson Jr. Don't even have Travis Hunter, who's going to come back next year. It's going to be really interesting what their offense looks like next year. Liam Cohen, Coach of the Year candidate, probably not going to win. I think Mike Vrabel is going to win that one. But everything's rolling for Jacksonville, and they couldn't get it done. And at the end of the day, I think they played very well. There's the interception Trevor Lawrence threw, but honestly, it just came down to, can the defense get stops? And they could until the very end of the game where Buffalo scored the game-winning touchdown to seal it. Jacksonville had a chance in the end, which I'm not going to go into because you have probably the best kicker in the game. I'm a big Brandon Aubrey fan. Like, at the end of the season, he kind of stumbled a little bit, but I still think he's on his way to be the GOAT kicker in NFL history. But Cam Little is a beast, dude. That kid can kick it. And he had a missed field goal at the end of the half, which was a really weird play as well. Not just the kickoff, but how they got not the field goal attempt, but just how they got to be able to have that field goal attempt. You have that guy. You're down 3. You have a minute left. And Trevor Lawrence throws an interception, and that's the end of the ball game. Unfortunate, but what it really came down to is they needed to stop. Brandon Cooks went right down the middle, busted coverage, confusion on the secondaries, and they were able to get it 15-yard line, close to the 10-yard line. Ended up holding them. I believe it's 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, I want to say. They do a little tush push to get the first down. At this point, clock's running. Jacksonville's starting to use their timeouts. But they essentially just tush push him to the 1-yard line from the 11-yard line. And I'm surprised that they didn't kneel the ball. I know a lot of people, my guy Rob Pizzola was just like going crazy because it's like, all right, you want to run down the clock. And essentially, the touchdown is going to be the last score of the game. They had over a minute left, I think close to 2 minutes, and they decide just to score the touchdown. Like, kneel it. You have 3 other downs to score the touchdown to go ahead. Instead, you give Jacksonville a ton of time, and they had plenty of time. They were out of timeouts, but they had a minute left to drive down the field to kick a field goal to tie the game. Yeah, so I think it could have ended very badly for Buffalo, but things worked out in their favor. That was the play of the game. Brandon Cooks catching that pass to set them up for that score and that tush push, essentially, to seal the game. Yeah, that was unfortunate. That was truly a good game. I think Jacksonville played well. They were able to stop the run defense of Buffalo, but Josh Allen just proves that he's a crazy good player, even though despite the injuries and everything. But it's a different story next week, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. But I'm very unfortunate, so lost my money line bet as well as the Super Bowl future bet. You win some, you lose some. I think I still was on the right side of things. And yeah, maybe at the end of the day, that Cam Little field goal right before half could have potentially decided the game. A lot of different factors, but a great way to start off Wild Card Weekend, I will say that. Okay, going into the next few games, I wasn't super invested in some of these games. I went ahead and skipped the Sunday just because I didn't have a ton of action on the Saturday games. So Rams go into Carolina, high-scoring game. One thing I do find concerning is the Rams' defense. Like, to be honest, Carolina's offense isn't very good. Their defense is very good. And the Rams have proven their offense is the best in the league. But if you can't keep the Panthers, from not scoring 30-plus points, that's kind of a concern. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to. I'm kind of concerned about as far as the Rams. I do think they are the most seasoned team. I think they have one of the best coaches in Sean McVay. But if anything is going to come down to it, it's their defense. They just need more stops, and they're not doing that. And then a wild Saturday night game. I'm not going to go into all the details. I had the over in this game. It was looking a little shaky at first, but then fourth quarter, they just let loose and everyone was scoring. Again, the Bears come back from double-digit deficit in the fourth quarter. I don't know how they keep on doing it. Granted, it's against the Packers. I know it's a big rivalry, but it's the Packers. Like, their defense sucks. That's why I wanted the over in that game. That game was completely a coin flip. It could have gone either way. Either team could have won. And the Bears end up doing it again. And I don't think they're going to do that against the Rams in the divisional round. Going down to second game on Sunday. Sorry. Going back in order now. I wasn't super invested in this game. Of course, Philly. That was more of like a value play than me thinking they're going to go far in the playoffs. Philly is what Philly is, big moments. They kind of choke. I mean, they won the Super Bowl last year, but yeah, they got exposed by the 49ers. Couldn't score the ball against this terrible 49ers defense. And yeah, Philly, I think the NFC East is going to be a lot more interesting, especially with the John Harbaugh hire in New York for the Giants. So it'll be interesting what this division looks like next year. But not too much on that game. I wasn't super invested. I had it on the background. I wasn't even really paying attention much to it. Then Sunday night, man, this one, Chargers, man. And I didn't even think the Chargers were going to win, just a cover. And couldn't score a touchdown. They kick a field goal. That was their only points all game. Couldn't move the ball. Justin Herbert, man, get that man in the hospital. Poor guy, doesn't have an O-line, and just got smoked the whole game. And to be fair, Chargers defense did pretty well. They only allowed one touchdown that came late, I think, in the third quarter, and they did well on Drake May. I mean, yeah, he can use his legs. That's always going to be a concern because he's mobile. That's one thing Drake May is very good at. He can scramble and can get you first downs. But they were able to sack him 5 times, and that kind of shows you that it's a little bit, shaky for the Patriots offense. They just need guys to make plays and against a really good Chargers defense. But I think they're going to face a really good team in the next round, being the Texans. And then Monday night, I was all over the Texans on this one. Weird line. It was -3. I think it ended up closing on -3. I ended up getting a -2.5. And yeah, it was very concerning the whole game. Literally, CJ Stroud did everything in his human capability to give Pittsburgh the game, and just like, here, score a touchdown. Let me fumble the ball twice or one time. Or twice. I can't remember, one or twice. He had like 3 or 4 turnovers for the whole game. Let me throw you a pick. Let's give you the ball on our own 20-yard line, and they still don't score, and they can only field goals. That's really embarrassing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Granted, and it's just, you got to give credit to Houston's defense. They're the best defense in the league, and that's why I can see this very concerning for the Patriots. The big thing is if the Texans can score, but I think CJ Stroud probably played his worst game all season, and they win like this. Yeah, I like to put confidence in this Texans defense, and unfortunately for the Steelers, season's over. They weren't going to even win the next game, to play the Pats. So, yeah, what a game, a little bit tight at throughout the whole game to the fourth quarter. Then Houston kind of blew the doors open on that. But I'm glad I was on the right side of that. So Saturday, good. Sunday, not good, money-wise for me, betting-wise. And then, like I said, I was on Houston -2.5 on that Monday night game. And, yeah, ended up being great for me. So moving on to divisional round. Now, there's some really good games. It's going to be really good games from here on out. But you probably saw my story if you guys follow us. And be sure to, let me pull it up real quick, like and subscribe for the algo. And then also be sure to follow us at Boys Bet Ball on Instagram as well. Try to post content daily there as far as stories, and then upload our clips. And let us know if you have any suggestions. Like it says in the banner right here, comment what you want to see in our future streams. If you have any suggestions, we're all ears. Let us hear it. You want more betting? We can throw more betting on here. You want us to do crazy stuff like we have our NBA bet that we're doing, which I think it makes things a lot more interesting during the season. But just let us know. Would appreciate the feedback. All right, going into divisional rounds. Now, starting off on Saturday. Now, I love that there's Saturday and Sunday games, spread it out evenly. Last week, I wish no, actually last week was pretty good. I think it was the week before. Week 18 was weird how they scheduled the games. But we have 2 games on Saturday. And this is really important because Bills, remind you, they played on Sunday. Granted, it was the early slate. It was the early game. But still, only 6 days of rest, not a full 7 days. So they play on Saturday against the Broncos in Denver at Mile High Stadium. Denver is currently favored at -1.5. I actually grabbed a little bit of Denver when it was basically pick 'em. I got them at -108, and that is my play for this game. I'll be very interested on what the line closes at. I think, honestly, Denver is probably going to get even a little bit more money. But the main concern here is Josh Allen. Josh Allen, last week, he put his body through the ringer. He literally has like a hand injury, a foot injury, a knee injury, like a head injury. Dude, the dude's injured all over. If you were to see like a little scan of like where he's not injured on his body, his whole body would be red at this point. But that's what my big concern, Josh Allen's health. You could see his throwing was affected a little bit last week. Of course, he gets a little bit of rest, but 1 day short, that 1 day means a lot, especially deep in the postseason. And you have a rested Broncos team at Mile High. And to be fair, Jacksonville's defense is good, but this Broncos defense is a lot better than that Jacksonville defense. So I think that will cause issues. I think the Bills defense has definitely stepped up and playing decently well against a very hot Jacksonville offense. It'll be interesting to see what the Broncos want to do here. But the thing is, how do you beat the Bills? You run it down their throats. And Jacksonville, they have a pretty decent running game. Broncos, I know, have kind of struggled. It's tough seeing J.K. Dobbins go out. I think J.K. Dobbins might be available. Maybe probably not this game, but in subsequent games going forward if they end up winning on Saturday. But they're, Sean Payton, everyone's talking about it. He's an old school coach. He's going to be like, main focus, running the ball. We're going to run the ball. And Broncos aren't afraid to play in single digit margins. Like, they're totally fine. As long as they're in control of the game, they're in control of the pace, they have the ball majority of the game. That's how they like to roll. And this Broncos defense is one of the top run defenses in the league. So Buffalo loves to try to run the ball, especially with Josh Allen hurt. And Josh Allen, for how awesome he is, and at this point, he might have not been as exposed yet, but he doesn't really have many offensive weapons other than James Cook. Like, I think Shavers might be done for the postseason. He went out early last week. Gabe Davis, I'm pretty sure, is done for the season as well. So, like, who is your offense? Who are you throwing the ball to? Like Keon Coleman, like Khalil Shakir? Like, I don't know if that's going to do it, especially like you're going to have Pat Surtain on the back end of that Broncos defense. You have Will Moss. I mean, he's improved. He's going to get targeted a lot as well, but I think Bills are going to try to establish – this is going to be a run fest, honestly. So I picked Broncos. That opened I'd have pick them. I'm trying to look at the total. Total right now is 45.5. Depending, I just don't trust Buffalo's defense. I would possibly look at an under in this game, but just because I think both teams are just going to try to run the ball, waste time. Wrong. It's just all dependent on like what Bills defense shows up. If the Bills defense shows up a little bit, I kind of like the under, but depending, I might still ride with Denver money line. I might bet it again, double down on it. I got a little bit early on the week, but I wanted to see where the line went before I went full force on it. All right, so that's the first game. I picked Broncos to advance. All right, next game. San Francisco 49ers in Seattle facing against the Seahawks. Sam Darnold, questionable. I don't know exactly what's wrong with him. I haven't read too much on the reports, but yesterday he was questionable to play in this game. I still think he obviously will play in this game. I'm not exactly sure what's the issue here. We'll have to stay tuned for that. But that was very surprising. Week of rest. I don't know if he tweaked an ankle or something, but that is very concerning. I don't even know who their backup quarterback is at this point. But Seattle, what does Seattle do? They rely on their defense, and their defense is freaking good. So what are the 49ers really good at? Their offense. If their defense can play, it might be a very similar game to the Philly game last week. But I think the Seahawks have it on this end. I just can't trust this Niners defense. Like, Philly's offense is bad, and Seahawks offense is pretty bad too, to be honest. You take away the defensive touchdowns and stuff. But they're better than Philly. Philly is just bad offensively. I don't know how to say it. So that'll be an interesting game. Right now, the line's at Seattle -7, total 45.5. I don't really have too many angles on this game, to be honest. I would probably be like, if I had to lean and potentially pick a side. I'm not saying this is a play. I don't think you should necessarily play it, but I'd lean Seattle. But I believe this line opened at 7 and still at 7. I'm trying to look at some of my apps, like what you could potentially get it at. Maybe at a 6.5. Thing is like, this 49ers team is good, I think they could potentially still cover that pretty big number, but Seattle has been pretty dominant. I just don't know if, right, yeah, you have a 6.5, a little bit juice, -120. That could be the move. I'm not super interested in this game, to be honest. So as far as betting wise, but Seattle, I think they're going to win. And then the next game going into Sunday, Sunday games, we have 2 games. First game, Texans taking on the Patriots at Gillette Stadium. Current line is -3 New England, which I believe that's what it opened at. And then over the total is 40.5. So it was opened up 41.5. It dropped a point. I believe it's going to be a pretty cold game. I definitely know that Chicago game after this one is going to be extremely cold. But looking at the Texans offense, obviously they scored 30-something points, but some of that had to do with the defensive touchdown being scored and then the Steelers completely giving up at the end of that game. But how I kind of said it with some people I've talked to already is anything under 3, I'd like New England. Anything over 3, I would like the Texans. Personally, I think the Texans can be very competitive in this game. Yeah, like Patriots are good. I will say that. It's all dependent on, like I said, I think CJ Stroud had his worst game all season last week. I don't think he's going to replicate that. And I think their defense, Houston's defense, is going to show up, and I think it's going to cause Drake May to make a couple of mistakes here and there. And it's all dependent on that Houston offense. Patriots defense is pretty good, but Houston can and Nico Collins is out, which some people are very concerned about. He's probably not going to play due to a concussion. I don't see that. He's like their best receiver for sure, but they have enough other weapons on the offensive end. I don't think he's he's a terrible guy to lose. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's like a huge needle mover. Like they have no chance this game now that he's out. So I do believe Christian Gonzalez, who's their best quarterback, was also in concussion protocol as well. He did have a couple limited practices. I just looked on that, I think like Monday or Tuesday. I don't know what his practice status was yesterday, but if he's out as well, I think that's more of a ding, honestly, to the Patriots back end versus Houston not having Nico Collins. So yeah, this can be a kind of ugly game. I see 3s, a little bit juice 3s. I see some 3.5s. I'd be tempted to lean on the 3.5s, -114 I'm seeing right now. But give me Houston. I think Houston. I mean, I have a bet on it. I think Houston has better angles to win this game based off of their defense than New England. But don't get me wrong. Like Drake May could just go out, slicing and dicing, and they could win the game comfortably. All right, last game. I think this one's going to be a great game. This might be even like the game of the entire divisional round. Is you got the 5 seed LA Rams going into Chicago, Soldier Field, frigid cold, in the 10s, in the teens, below the teens, I believe, against the Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears and Ben Johnson. Sean McVay versus Ben Johnson. And you might call me a homer, even like I have bets in place for a reason, and I like the Rams. Right now the line is, I believe, -3.5. Oh, now it's 4.5. Wow. 4.5 for the Rams on the road. Yeah, I don't like that. If I'm going to look at anything, I would look at the total here. I know it's super cold. Kind of like going into a day or two, we'll see how cold it is. There's all these trends and stuff, and I'm a big proponent of not following trends. Like, trends don't determine, like, every event is a single outcome with different variables. Just because something's a trend doesn't mean you can definitely look after it and see if there's potential correlation. But just because something is a trend doesn't mean it's correlated, meaning, oh, because this happened 5 times out of, or 5-0, 5 out of 5 times means it's going to happen again. It's not the case. So Matthew Stafford hasn't played well in cold games, but I think they have a good run defense or run offense. They have a good offense in general, so I don't think there'll be much to worry about as far as offensively. Bears offensively, they're what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball. I'm very skeptical about the Bears defense. I'm also skeptical about the Rams defense as well. The only thing holding me back is Obviously, people are saying the Bears are obviously going to run a lot, milks clock, and potentially if Chicago has its offensive woes like they typically do at the beginning of games, but in the cold is somewhat of a concern, and I would possibly look at the over in this game. I really want to bet the over, but I know those cold conditions are make me hesitant. Like if this game was not played in Chicago and was played at SoFi in LA, this would easily be in the 50s, easily. But since the Soldier Field winds, affecting field goals, affecting passes, people more tend to run the ball. It could be possibly snowing. There's a lot more variables I'm not super psyched about. So 4.5, I think that is too much for the Rams. Thinking about their state of their defense and not playing very well recently. And yeah, I would like to look at the over. So I believe this game, opened at 51.5 and it dropped all the way to 40.5. So I'll keep looking out for the weather report and stuff like that, but I'd very much want to play it over in this game. I'm all for the Chicago overs. I've cashed on several Chicago overs the past several weeks. But I believe the Rams are going to win and advance. And in the NFC Championship, it's going to be rematch Rams versus Seahawks. That's crazy that pretty much all the teams left on the NFC side are from the NFC West. There's a gauntlet of a division right now. And then the AFC Championship game, I believe, is going to be the Texans playing the Broncos. So hopefully they keep my bets alive. Anything can happen, but I'm excited for a good weekend of football. Right now we're sitting at already close to 30 minutes. I got to hurry up here. College football playoffs, championship game, the Natty on Monday. We have Indiana versus Miami. And man, what a journey it has been up until this point. Plain and simple, Indiana is going to win this game. Kirk's saying that he's a dog, and they're going to take care of business. Right now, the line, I think, is something pretty crazy. It's like 7.5, I believe. Oh, it's 8.5 now. I think at one point it was 9.5. I believe you can get some 9.5. So let me see real quick. And that would be the only angle I would look at is Miami. Miami plus 9.5, making it competitive. Miami has been great. I think their pass rush was a little bit suppressed last game, but Indiana is just really good. Just all phases of football, 3 phases: offense, special teams, and defense. They're dominant, and I think they're going to dominate again. It's just by how much margin are they going to win at this point for Indiana? If it's like a -7, I would like Indiana, but anything above that, I see a -7.5, but I would probably lean towards Miami. So I'm kind of hoping this gets up to like Miami plus like 10.5, maybe even higher. A lot of money coming in on Indiana. I mean, you have to take into account this is a home game for Miami. It'll be interesting to see how many Miami versus Indiana fans, because in that last game, Indiana, it was like 90-something% Indiana fans. It's not that many Ole Miss fans. Sorry, not Ole Miss. Who did Indiana play? I'm just getting mixed up. It's been a long week. Oregon, sorry. So yeah, I'm hoping it gets steamed a little bit more on Indiana's side, and then I can take Miami and then have a good game. Yeah, Indiana's gonna win the Natty. And shout out to Coach Sig and those guys at Indiana. Hoosiers. All right. Now going into NBA trade deadline. I'm probably not going to talk a ton about that. The main focus is going to be like football for right now. And then once football's over, we can focus all we want on basketball, which I'm super psyched for. So NBA trade deadline, there are a number of people that could potentially get traded. We are about a month away from the NBA trade deadline. And it's been interesting. Lots of rumors. AD still potentially might get traded, which if we can get a decent haul for him, like a first-round pick, a couple expiring contracts, maybe one young player, I think we go for it. But if it's not including any first round picks and just strictly expiring contracts, like I don't think it's worth it in my opinion. Just hold on to him for the rest of the season. He's going to be out indefinitely, or supposedly. There was this weird rumor going around from Shams actually tweeted it, and AD came back and said this is actually wrong. So we need Woj back. With Woj there was no mistakes happening, no mistweets. But they said Anthony Davis was going into like season-ending like hand surgery, but that wasn't the case. He's seeing a bunch of different specialists to get second opinions and stuff like that. So potentially could come back for the playoffs if a playoff team was wanting to trade for him. But essentially, a team that's going to trade for him is looking at for mainly future, signing him to some probably some sort of an extension, because that's going to be what he wants if he gets traded. The Mavs should not give him an extension under any circumstances. Potential other trade targets. Obviously, we had the Trae Young trade. Atlanta trading him to Washington for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. It's a future move for Washington. They don't need Trae Young this year. I have him on my fantasy team, which I'm very unfortunate to have. I hope he plays at some point during the season, because he was literally my first round pick at the number like 10 or 11 pick, and he has played like 10 games this season, and it's been terrible. So hopefully, I know Washington's trying to tank. They have a top like 5 protected pick, or like first round protected pick, something like that. So they obviously want to keep their pick, and so they have no reason to play him extensively right now, and I guess I don't blame him. And then the Hawks, they get a veteran CJ McCollum. I believe he's an expiring contract. And then you get a pretty intriguing player, Corey Kispert. He's a good shooter. They definitely need more shooters on the Atlanta team. They have good defense, but they don't have shooting. So I think it's pretty much a win-win. So other potential trade targets, Kristaps Porzingis, he has an expiring contract. There are talks about him being put into that Dallas trade for Anthony Davis, which those trade talks kind of fizzled out. There's still some people interested in AD. I think the Hawks are still interested, as well as who else was it? There was one other team, the Raptors, I believe, was pretty intrigued with it. Hey, we can get RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl. Like, I'll take him. He's been injured a lot. I don't think he's on a very good contract, but I'd take him and then to see if he can get a pick or so. I'd do that trade. Get a nice young wing player in RJ Barrett. I don't think he's going to be necessarily like anything special, but I think he could be a good contributing, like fringe all-star type player in the next 4 or 5 years. Kristaps, we got Chris Boucher, which honestly I don't even think he's like played that much for the Celtics. They've been playing Keita a lot, and they've been playing Luke Garza. A lot of the young guys playing for the Celtics, but I love to see Jaylen Brown's balling out. Hopefully he can finish, top 3 MVP. I can cash out on my Kalshi future, and I also have them for wins for my side bet. MPJ for the Nets. I think that would be very interesting. There were sources saying that the Warriors were potentially interested in them, and then they came back and said he doesn't like fit what we're doing. Honestly, I think the Warriors are kind of cooked. They like totally sold their future. I don't know what they do. They're very mediocre. Like Jimmy Butler said, it's like, how are we like halfway through the season? He's like, mediocre. Like, we're in the middle of the pack right now, which they are. And I don't know how you make that team better without giving like more of your future away, but just to like appease Steph. They're probably going to trade Kuminga to manage trade, which I have no reason why they still have Kuminga. They're not even playing him. It'll be interesting. Dallas, I believe, is pretty intrigued by Kuminga. I wouldn't be opposed to us trading like Gafford or someone for Kuminga. Even like package Gafford. I would love to keep PJ. I would not want to trade Najee Marshall as well. But if you can get like a pick out of it, potentially first round pick, but we'll see how the money works out and stuff like that. But I would be in favor of playing a little bit of risk and getting Kuminga, because I think he has a lot of upside. But FPJ, I don't know necessarily if he's going to get moved. what teams would be interested in him, but he could add a lot to a playoff team, with the scoring. I'm looking at other more intriguing players. AD, like I mentioned, Raptors and Hawks, I think, are the two main teams. They were trying to shop him a little bit to Golden State, but it was more so from the Mavs end rather than the Warriors end wanting to engage in talks. Nuggets, Tobias Harris is always a name to look out for, him and his nasty contract. Other than that, it's like lower end players. I think the Lakers would probably make a trade here or there. Bucks are definitely, they're not trading Giannis supposedly now. So I don't know how they get a player. This would be interesting if the Bucks potentially try to make a play for like Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy is definitely on the trade market. He's a really good player, up and coming player. I think New Orleans, especially since they don't have their pick in this year, they're going to look for draft assets. But he's a very intriguing player. I guess it says like Pelicans would not make Murphy available, but I think for the right price, they definitely would. It'll be interesting to see if OKC makes any moves. I don't think they need to, but they could. Other than that, there's not a ton of like big names. Like I guess it's pretty sad when you have like AD, Trae Young, and Michael Porter Jr. and Kuminga being like the biggest names in the trade deadline. So, I don't know if there's going to be any blockbuster trades. You never know. Luka happened last year, and that was super shocking. So, but all I'm saying for my Mavs, you can find something like that for AD, expiring contracts, a young player, a pick. I would take it. Anything less than that, not as intrigued by. If you can get Kuminga for like a Gafford, I would be open to trading Gafford as well. Like this year, you're not really. You want players in the timetable of Cooper Flag, so young players. PJ Washington's like getting up there. I think he's like 29 or something like that. He might be even younger than that. But getting players in their young 20s, maybe mid 20s if they're a pretty good player, would be the move for the Mavs moving forward. So just my 2 cents. I'll close it off right here with college basketball. Now, college basketball has been great. We have conference play starting. Yesterday, I ended up going to the UT Vanderbilt game. Vanderbilt was 16-0, coming to Austin. I found tickets for super cheap, like literally $14, like 30 rows up. Great game. I bet Vandy. I should have just been a homer and just like bet Texas. It was like Vandy -3.5. And honestly, I was very low on this Texas team. They beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, which is a big accomplishment. They played really good defense. I didn't think they could replicate that. I thought Texas is kind of pretty bad. They're going to be similar to past years, But Sean Miller's got something going with their defense. I love their freshmen. They're big. I don't even know where he's from. Some like Eastern European country, like Manus of Volcatitis. His is his name. He's just a big dude. He's like 7 foot. He's kind of a little bit raw, but he's a big body. He blocks shots. He plays defense. He rebounds. He can make free throws. He doesn't have a super, like I said, polished offensive game by far. He doesn't really have a jump shot, but when you're that big, especially playing in college, like you don't really need one right now. And he's just a freshman. So a couple years from now, refines his game. I think he can be a really good player, assuming he doesn't transfer out of Texas. But they have a really good defense. Jordan Pope is a sharpshooter, their point guard. And if he's hitting shots, their defense, if they play locked in like that the past 2 games, they can play with anyone, especially in the SEC, which isn't as strong this year. And they keep playing the way they do. The big thing is if they can get good efficiency on the offensive end, then I think they can definitely make noise come tournament time. But that was just a cool game I went to. BYU doing BYU stuff. Classic cardiac Cougs. They played TCU in Provo. Line was like -13.5. I was not at all. It's like one of those lines where it's like, yeah, I can see it happening. Is it super likely? I'm not sure, but I don't want to be on the other end of like BYU blowing out TCU. TCU is a really good team, and they definitely proved it. BYU came out pretty flat, like they typically do in most first halves. I believe AJ was dealing with the flu or some sort of sickness, so he wasn't playing up to par. But they started getting things going in the second half and ended up winning by 6 points after being down only 6 points at half. And that's why I said people were like, "Oh, are we concerned about the Cougs right now going into halftime down 6?" I'm like, for how bad they played in the first half, which was awful. They played awful. Being down single digits is actually like pretty good. I mean, you're at home, you have the crowd on your side, get some energy plays going. That place can flip with a switch, and yeah, and they proved that. I think they should have won back more, but beggars can't be choosers. Early tournament predictions. I was gonna go into this. I don't have a ton of time to do this, and then also conference winners and contenders. I'll just do like quick, like Power 4 conference, maybe Power 5 since Mountain West. USU is really good. I bet on them as well to, secure the cover of minus 13.5 against a Nevada team, which in the past has been pretty good, but not as good lately. I believe they had a coaching change and lost several players. They could not do that. They won, I think, by like 7 points or something. But USU was really good this year. Mountain West isn't particularly like super strong, so I picked them coming out of the Mountain West. Big Ten. Big Ten is really interesting. You got really good teams. You got Michigan State. You have Michigan. Them losing at home. In Ann Arbor, home court advantage. They lost to Wisconsin, which honestly makes BYU's resume a lot better than beating Wisconsin at the beginning of the year. But yeah, Michigan's obviously really good. Other Big Ten teams to watch out for. Let me just look. There's just so many teams in each conference now. It's ridiculous. They need to solve something with that. Nebraska, man, 16-0. I think they're 17-0 now. One of the 3 undefeated teams left. It's Nebraska, Miami of Ohio, and Arizona. I'm going to be so looking forward to that Arizona BYU game. It's going to be so good. Illinois is up there. Virginia. Yeah, I think obviously the favorites I think would be like Michigan, Nebraska. I love me some Fred Hoiberg. Nebraska hasn't been good in a long time, and Fred Hoiberg's a phenomenal coach. I was really high on them last year, and yeah, even more this year. So I'd say it's and then Purdue. Honestly, I haven't been super high on Purdue. They're always good every single year. Like Coach Painter's really good. They always play well with Mackey. But yeah, I think it's kind of like a 3 or 4 horse race in this one. Michigan, Purdue, Nebraska. Who else? I would throw in Michigan State there. You can't leave out Michigan State, Tom Izzo. If I had to choose one, I still think Michigan is the team to beat. They had a bad loss against Wisconsin at home, but I think they have the players and the tools, barring any injuries, that to win that conference. SEC or ACC. Let me just do that. Duke. I think ACC is better than they are in football, basketball wise, but I'd say Duke is the team to beat there. The dark horse for ACC could potentially be North Carolina. Like North Carolina has lots of stretches where they look phenomenal. Caleb Williams being a top 3 pick in the draft next year. But I don't know if as a team, Seth Trimble coming back is huge for them, but they haven't been playing as well as they had at the very, very beginning of the season. So that's a little bit cause for concern. So I'd say Duke is kind of like a one-man race in the ACC right now. And the SEC, a lot worse than they were last year, but still like pretty decent. SEC, the team to beat, I think Vandy's going to definitely fall off. They had a good run, but at least based on what I saw, they didn't get the scoring they need to. They didn't have the defensive. And Texas is on the up and coming, but to be fair, I wouldn't say Texas is like top program in the SEC right now. I'm always big on Alabama. I like their style of play. It can be very high variance. You score a lot, get a lot of blowouts, but on the other end, it can hurt you a lot playing that fast. I'm still a big fan of Alabama. I think they just need to pick stuff up. I think I love Nate Oates. They always make a noise, especially in the playoffs, the tournament. SEC is tough. I think there's a lot of teams. There's several teams that could make out of it, make it out of the SEC. So not a ton of opinions on the SEC right now. I think there are a number of teams that could win it. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't have a favorite right now. And the Big 12, Arizona's got to be the favorite. Iowa State suffering a bad loss in Lawrence to Kansas. I don't think Kansas is really in contention for a Big 12 title this year. I think they could possibly make some noise in the tournament, but they have a lot of work to do, in my opinion. Arizona, Iowa State, BYU, Houston is up there. Just a lot of really good teams. Texas Tech could be a dark horse. I don't think they have enough depth, in my opinion, like other than JT Toppin, Chris Anderson. Who if one of those guys gets hurt or in foul trouble like they have in previous games, it's like, who's going to back them up? They don't have good backups. They don't have the depth that these other teams have. I think Arizona has the best depth across the board. I'd say BYU has the second best depth across the board. As far as all positions, sucks to lose Dawson Baker, but you have a bunch of other guards to carry that. And you have a big three, one guy doesn't have a good game. You have two other guys that are star players that can take the load for these BYU Cougars. So I think the BYU, odds-wise, probably pick BYU to put in the Big 12. Obviously, I'm biased. I think they have the best team. I haven't watched a ton of Arizona basketball, so I definitely see them being the favorites, but I think BYU is very underrated. They're always discounted. They only have one loss, and that loss was a 2-point loss to UConn, which honestly they had no business even being in the game, down 2 starters. And that was in the Garden in Boston, so essentially a home game for UConn, even though they'll say it's a neutral site game. The thing is the Cougs need to play better in the first half. I think they have the defense that's there. They definitely have the offense on there. That's their strong point. And they can do it from any angle. They can do it from 3. They can do it from inside. They have defenders at all positions. They have scorers at all positions. And I think they have, in my opinion, the best coach in the Big 12 being Kevin Young. Iowa State is up there. They have really good defense. They have Mamo. I'm high on Momachili or whatever his name is. And then Jefferson is really good. And then you can't take out Damon Lipsey. I've been watching this guy for like 4 or 5 years, however long he's been playing. Grew up in Ames, Iowa. He's a through and through Iowa State Cyclone. I love his play, how he plays, his grit, his toughness, his defense, and his leadership. I really like Iowa State. So if I had to pick, like Arizona, obviously I think is the favorite right now. BYU, Iowa State. You got to throw in Houston in there. Kelvin Sampson's always a tough coach. I think their style of play can hurt them a lot of times. They can rightfully freeze up on the offensive end, and they've been tightening up on defense in the past, especially since conference play started. They got a little bit loose at the beginning of the season, but they have really good, like Kingston Flemings is going to be a top 10 pick next year in the draft. Emmanuel Sharp is really good. They have a lot of good role players, Uzan as well. My big thing is offensively, I think they get stalled a lot. They rely too much on their defense, which I know is their whole identity is their defense and being scrappy and getting turnovers and scoring quick buckets. But I think they can go on offensive stunts, where they don't score a ton of points. Obviously, that changed. Like they brought in a lot of better offensive players than they have past years. So I think that's their one Achilles heel, in my opinion. But yeah, really good. If I had to pick like Final Four right now, it'd be like you had to put Arizona up there. I think they're, like I said, one of the deepest teams. And then Michigan, I'd put Michigan in there as well. And then it's a tough one. BYU is number 3 on there. And then I want to say Duke, but Duke is susceptible. Players can figure out how to play Cam Boozer. They're starting to get a little bit better, like supporting cast from their other players, but I don't think they have enough of a supporting cast to go super deep. This Gonzaga team, record-wise, they're good, but I think they have stints where they don't look good. Their guard play isn't as good as in years past, in my opinion, for Gonzaga. I'll put Shudon as my fourth team. Because I think the age of Cinderellas is kind of done. So it's going to be a top 20 team, in my opinion. Let me just put in Michigan. I already put Michigan in. Michigan State, Tom Izzo, come March. Different beast, different animal. I like how they play. They play gritty. They have two bigs. Kohler is great. And if you can have a big man that can play defense, shoot threes, is very high, have a high basketball IQ, pairing with a good guard play, I think they're going to be really tough to beat. So I'll throw in Michigan State in there. I like what I see from them. All right. I'm going to have to call it quits. I have to go work. But I'll catch y'all later and eat some food as well. And remember, be responsible betting and win some money. Let's win some money this weekend. All right. Catch y'all later. Peace.